fishing, so I think my friend with the sailing boat is he's got other stuff that's come up.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to go to Lisbon and then take off from there and be part of his crew. But
were you going to come to the Americas, or were you going somewhere else?
Well, the boat's in Lisbon, so we were going to go to the Mediterranean.
Oh, okay. That would have been nice. Okay, well, yep. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. It is your show that's all about the news and how it impacts Niagara and our area. So it's Wednesday, July 30th. What have you done to the month, Dave?
I don't know. It evaporated.
Yeah, you've been getting rid of it, haven't you? You've been shoveling it away in the dirt, haven't you? Because I've been trying to do things, but every time I look around, the time's gone.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You know,
tell me about it. Just and I haven't really been doing all that much. It seems that like I go here, do this, do that, but yeah. So there's. I don't know what happens to time. I remember talking to my father one time when my little ones came into the world and I saw how fast they were growing, and I says, "Oh my God, how time flies! Look at these little guys; they're already growing so fast." It's just time seems to be moving so fast. And my father says, "Wait till you get to my age."
Yeah.
Now I am at that age, and it is flying.
Yeah, and the worst of it is that you probably said, "Yeah, Dad, I'll never get to that age. It'll be forever before I get to that age."
Well, I would have said that about.
Then you blinked, and then you're there.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. It's actually our look at the kind of world news and things that impact us here. So
Niagara, Ontario, Canada, and the world.
Yeah. Okay, and there's some new inductees into the Niagara Arts and Culture Wall of Fame, and these are Kyle Schwinghammer, Michael Madden, and Paul Vandersloys. Right, so Kyle is a singer and visual artist.
No, it's Kurt Schwinghammer.
Kurt
Schwinghammer.
Yeah.
Now the reason why I put this article here is because I know Kurt Schwinghammer.
Yeah.
Kurt Schwinghammer has become sort of a famous artist, musician, and all of that. And he was a friend of my brother's, and I also actually he was over at my house one time with a bunch of his friends, and I happened to walk in on them, and they were all playing, sort of jamming up some music together. And I had a clarinet, so I went and got a clarinet, and sort of they said, "Well, jump in." So they had this cacophony of music. The whole thing was supposed to be just play anything you can think of right now, and you can imagine the noise that came out of there. So I decided to play while this was going on. The world is alive with the sound of music. So I was the only melody in the whole thing. And when no one noticed that I was playing that. And when they started to listen to it, they heard all this noise, and in the background, the world is alive with the sound of music, and so they all laughed because, of course, it was anything but. It was just noise, right?
Yeah, unless you happen to be playing the same tune, it is quite difficult. So was that some time ago? Sounds like it.
Oh God, that would have been back about a minimum of 50 years ago.
Oh wow! So we're talking. We're talking.
Oh no, maybe not. Maybe about 45 years ago.
So we're talking about a guy who's getting on the ears now.
Yeah, he's a couple years younger than I am.
Yeah.
He was a friend of my brother's, a very, very eccentric fellow, completely different. I do remember he was always against back in the day when everybody was against the establishment figures and all that. And I think I quipped to him one time because I was like the establishment guy. Not really, because I went out and I did sports and joined stuff and they were sort of anti-establishment type and I just told them that he talked about racism and the establishment and stuff like that. And I think I quipped to him one day. He talked about bigotry, and I said, "Well, you're one of the biggest bigots, man. You're against everybody that's normal."
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I do hope he loves you for that.
Yeah, I've heard him. I haven't talked to him in many years. Well, he's actually a friend of my brother's. So I haven't talked to him in many years, but I have heard him on late night at CBC radio. He used to pop up there every once in a while. You can look up his interesting music videos. You can find them on YouTube and stuff like that. He's an artist, and also he has an extraordinarily interesting art. He's been an artistic guy for all of time,
According to this, he does album design.
Oh yeah, that was one of his big things. He's done album designs for a lot of different bands. He was the go-to guy for album designs for a lot of progressive bands in the Toronto area for years.
Any real, name us some real famous ones.
I can't because I can't remember it. They've been, but I do remember seeing his bands. He's also done a version of Buffy St. Marie's Universal Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
He did a version of Buffy. He did artwork to go along with Buffy St. Marie's Universal Soldier. Okay. So if you look up Universal Soldier, the video, you'll the artwork that goes with it is swing hammers.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really unusual name.
Yeah, and he couldn't have been more different than his father, who was an OPP guy. His father couldn't. It was sort of a conservative, very conservative, with conservative values and all that, and his son was like super opposite.
Yeah.
He did have. I remember he had an avant-garde type of artistic presentation in the Niagara Falls the library one time. It was kind of neat. It had TVs and it was, so that was anyway. I can't go into it because we have a show to do. But anyway, the reason why I put that there is because I know swing hammer.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I noticed about this is that the other two inductees are Michael Madden, who's posthumously inducted, who's beloved theatre director and long-term contributor to Firehall Theatre, and the other one is Paul Vandersloys, who's also
Vandersloos, I think is
Vandersloos. Okay, yeah. It's a Dutch name, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
He's less publicized than some of the others, but he's recognized for his cultural impact in the region.
Yes. I think he might be related to the famous photographer in town.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anything else to say about these people?
No, but I'm kind of looking forward. They're going to get inducted in November, I think, at the Exchange. That big white elephant that sits there that nobody knows what to do with.
Well, that's exactly what this building was built for, right?
Yeah, it should be doing something like that. It should be more active. You should have artists in there. Like, I really I can't get into it because I didn't really follow the exchange and all that. It was supposed to be a cultural center aligned with the farmers market beside it, but guess where I went to go to the farmers market on the weekend was, of course, a McBain Center. It makes more sense for it to be there.
Yeah.
But let me, hey, just as an aside, if you go to the farmers market, man, pick your time because I could not buy anything at the farmers market when I was there except samosas. The It was just too jammed up. The lines were really long, and I ended up just later on in the day going down the Niagara Parkway and got the fruits that I wanted at the Niagara at the farmers market, just along the side of the road. But I'll also put a big advertisement here. I will also add an aside here. There's the Great Canadian Samosa Factory out of Fort Erie. If you go to the farmers market, you'll find a lady there, an Ethiopian lady by the name of B. She's a lovely person. She's delightful. She's a real entrepreneur. She worked for 12 years, I think, in the customs and decided to go into business because I think it was because her daughter had a hard time finding a job. So she started making these samosas, and you can buy them at the farmers market, and they are the best. Like my kids, after eating the samosas some time ago when they first tried them, and finding out that B was unmarried, insisted that I marry her so that I have a constant supply of samosas for them.
Well, that's good thinking. I love that thinking.
There's another thing too. She told me,
hey, you should.
Yeah, there's yeah, and actually they bugged me again because I got a load of them on the weekend, and so they bugged me again. Well, you better marry that girl. Anyway, so she told me one of the something most people have negative stories about the tariffs that are hitting them, but it's helped her a bit because the government has allowed her to helped her to be able to market her stuff in major grocery stores. So she, in order to,
in major grocery stores in Canada.
Yeah, well, yeah. In this particular case, in the Niagara region.
Yeah.
So one or two of the major grocery stores here are selling her samosas, and this was an approach by the government to help small businesses expand their operations or to help them out. And so, yeah, so that really will help her because her samosas now, she used to just sell them here she's got a little restaurant in Fort Erie, but that's where she makes them and sells them all around. And this has helped her because it's opened the door for her, and it's because of tariffs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I get it. I get it. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Canadian Border Services Agency stopped 12 seized 12 firearms from US residents recently. So the way that they termed this in the paper was US residents. I'm going, okay, so the US residents, are they Canadian citizens? But they didn't go into that, did they? They didn't go into where their citizenship was.
No, they didn't. I think it's probably because whether those residents were actually also citizens.
Yeah.
So they were bringing guns, but this is very typical. Even though Americans know that they can't bring a gun across,
yeah,
they do it anyway because they feel naked without them.
Yeah.
you find
12 firearms, 18 magazines, and 254 rounds of ammunition. That's a lot of damage there.
Yes, unfortunately, Americans have a lot of guns, and when police officers, sheriffs, and other peacekeepers come to Canada, they try to sneak their guns in with them, and quite often they're caught. My big question is, where's the big stuff? I mean, these are guns that are owned by residents, and they try to sneak them across the border.
Well, actually, the interesting thing is you were talking about cops there, because a cop, of course, is not allowed to actually go anywhere. In the US, a cop is not allowed to go anywhere without their firearm. So you would think that they would actually check that in at the border in a locker or something on the US side of the border before crossing. Or they
can do any number of things, and I'm sure if a sheriff out of Mississippi is going to cross the border in Ontario, that they don't necessarily have to have their weapon on them. I can understand them not having their weapon anytime they're on or off duty within their own jurisdiction. I don't think that applies. You know, you get a cop from Mississippi and he's supposed to have his gun on him when he's in Washington, the state of Washington. I doubt it.
Yeah, you mean if he's gone there for a conference or if he's on vacation?
Yeah, and so there are ways and means of which you can do this. Hunting is a big thing. So lots of Americans come up here to hunt.
Yeah.
All they have to do is make sure that customs knows they have the gun, and then they get paperwork to get
it's declared. Yeah, exactly. So that's declared. They have the paperwork, and they're allowed to come and take part in hunting. Yeah.
So they can bring their firearms in that way.
But there's a difference, because they're allowed to bring hunting rifles and the associated armament for hunting rifles, but not any other weapons.
No, they can. They can, because there are marksman shoots and things like that. So they can bring pistols and other weapons.
Going for that kind of If they're going, but they have to be declared for the thing that they're going.
The same
for.
thing,
yeah.
They have to be identified in their purpose.
You wouldn't be allowed to just pick up your entire armory from back home and bring it with you.
Yeah, they have to be. And they can't be available to the driver at all. They have to be in the trunk of the car and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So, but my question here is, there are a lot of firearms breaching the border. When the Liberal government made a big deal, after there was one of those big massacres, the federal government made a big deal of coming down on a lot of illegal firearms and weapons that could do a lot of damage. But they were criticized very, very much from the beginning that the law was good enough as it was, and that the big problem was illegal firearms crossing the border. And if you're going to spend $680 million buying back firearms from people who own them, because now they're thought to be, unacceptable, the money was much better spent at the border. But the government kept using the headlines to sort of drum, we want to get rid of these guns. But as we discussed here many times on that show, around that time and in that show, that is not the problem. The firearms owner, the regular firearms owner, is not the problem. The problem is guns coming across the border, illegal guns coming across the border.
Yeah, and there's nothing to indicate these were anything but legal weapons anyway.
Yes. So there's nothing about that either. They would have put that in there. Some are illegal arms.
But they do say that such incidents can lead to criminal charges. But I also saw there was a documentary about the US and US and Canadian customs a while back. 9 times out of 10, when the Canadian CBSA encounter weapons, they usually give the opportunity for the US, one of two things. They can either be seized or they can return to the US. 99% of them return to the US voluntarily.
Yeah, they can turn around, go back to the United States, get a locker, like you said, then drop the firearms off and come in.
Yeah.
Or do the applicable fight. If they're coming up for hunting and they didn't know the rule, then they might be able to do the paperwork.
Yeah, and exactly. That was one of those examples, is that the guy came with hunting rifles. He was going to a specific event. He just didn't fill in the right paperwork to get to go. Right? So they kind of sent him back across the border with the paperwork.
Yeah. So they're trying to be helpful to the citizen that just made a mistake, didn't know the rules. But firearms is the big thing. And Mike says, I think they should tariff USA for uncontrolled guns coming into Canada. Now we talked about the amount of fentanyl coming from Canada and the United States is very small, but the firearms are coming over. But it's a huger deal in Mexico, where massive amounts of fentanyl are crossing into the United States, but going the other way are massive amounts of armaments that keep these gangs going. And so Canada is kind of like a very tiny example of Mexico, where Mexico has massive amounts of fentanyl going one way, massive amounts of armaments going the other. It's sort of like a baby version of that on the Canadian border.
I don't think we get anywhere near the amount of arms that are heading to Mexico.
No, because we get a lot. We get way too many. But in Mexico, the arms going over there are to arm the criminal gangs. And that is the irony of the whole thing. The criminal gangs have been able to fight off the federales. In fact, they had a war with the federales. It cost 30,000 lives. The federales could not win that war against the drug cartels. So they just kind of made a truce with them. But the American government is angry at the Mexico for allowing this fentanyl and not policing it well enough. But they're allowing massive amounts of, and instead of stopping the massive amounts of arms going into Mexico, if they did that, they would disarm or help disarm the drug gangs, but all those arms going into Mexico are big money for the gun manufacturers. So nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So I don't know. It's such a contradiction, such a hypocrisy. But anyway, just like to mention though that we don't have. Just carry on. I was thinking of something, but I think it's on the docket.
Yeah. All right. Niagara Military Museum volunteers are looking to muster support for the armoury. Basically, it is running out of money, and I have to admit that it's not the first place I kind of think of going. And in fact, it's not just Niagara, it's just everywhere. I wouldn't tend to be going into a military museum. I've seen many. I love the buildings that armories are in most of the world, but I don't go inside them to the museums that are often inside them.
I don't think I've ever been into the building, even though I was in support of keeping it. I think I even wrote a little letter to the editor about it that got some thumbs up from people I knew. But the fact is that it's a military museum. The city owns it since 2020. I forget when it was that they actually owned
Yeah, a
it.
few years ago. Yeah, yeah,
The military decommissioned it in 1999. So it has a long storied history. That's where the lads mobilized for the First World War. That's where the lads mobilized for the Second World War and the Korean War.
yeah.
It's a very interesting building. It's nice inside. I've been in it. It's a very nice old building, or at least was when I saw it inside. However, it's staffed by volunteers mostly, and it's kind of a cost to the city to keep it going.
Yeah.
And so and there's only about 9 or 10,000 people that go through there every year. It's not really that well advertised. It's not that promoted because most of the stuff is done by volunteers.
Yeah.
And so I think we could change that just by making it more visual. But right now they're going to need money, and that's the appeal here.
One of the things that I've heard talked about, and I know that Karen Fraser is one of the proponents of this, is that we should be doing more we should be promoting our museums to the museum going public who tour general areas. And a lot of people, there's a lot of interest in museums generally about, and there is a specific tourist market for museums.
Yeah, I always hit museums when I travel just because I'm a history buff.
Yeah,
and
it's proving to me that what nobody's doing is actually marketing our museums.
Well, yeah, that's a hard thing because there's so much volunteer when you get a lot of volunteers, and so you can't get a whole lot of marketing that way. So they're looking at ways in which to make money to keep this thing floating.
Yeah,
I have an idea. I don't know how feasible it is, but I would say take part of the museum and rent it out to tourists. Have a B&B, but only
I was actually thinking of something different, mainly because I was going past the barracks in St. Catharines about how they could, because I think that is in part a museum. But I was thinking about how they could rent that out to local businesses.
Yeah, well,
the
one in London, in London, Ontario, the armoury was converted into a hotel.
Yeah.
So the armoury building was not destroyed. It was incorporated into, I think, one of the Delta chains. So that was pretty interesting. The building itself did not get destroyed. I think some of its military stuff is still on display.
You talk about that, and I remember one in Scotland, which was the same. I stayed at the hotel, and they actually had, like in the dining room, they had cases and displays for the museum. And as it happened, because I was eating at night, the museum wasn't open, but it was, was available to tour.
Yes, and I remember we had a surprise birthday party for my mother-in-law, and at this Delta building. It was a good combination. But I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know how feasible this is, but they're going to have to find more ways of making money.
Yeah.
You can't rely on entry fees and stuff like that. But the city that we have, how heritage bereft they are.
Yeah,
they'll put the wrecking ball to the place. It's one of our most unique looking buildings. So
and even if you were to not use it, you see, for example, immediately one thought that you could utilize it for, if you were to remove all of the museum stuff, which I don't recommend, of course, would be to turn it over to affordable living homes.
Well, that's one of the suggestions. However, that would then there would be a museum there. And the whole idea is a lot of this material that has been donated to the museum from different families. As a matter of fact, there's a story in there about a family or two who have donated to the museum, hoping that it will preserve it so that it won't end up in the landfill somewhere.
Yeah,
it has to, so you still need it as a museum, but there's got to be ways in which it can be funded better, particularly in these times of austerity. I watched the city council meeting yesterday, or most of it, and it was very interesting to note when they were talking about the Willoughby Chippewa recreational facility that's supposed to be an ice pad and a library and a few other things there, how everybody talked about the cost. The cost is $70 million. They're going to get $10 million from the government as a grant, but nobody wanted to pay that kind of money. Whereas in years past, I don't think they would have had the kind of discussions they had now on how much it's going to cost and how much is worth it.
Yeah.
And they called it wants and needs, basically. What do we need and what do we want? You had sort of like an outdoor skating trail. Okay, that's completely unnecessary. It would be nice, but completely unnecessary. We don't need to pay for that part of it. That kind of thing. When you go just a little while ago, when they're talking about concrete ping pong tables, that's kind of a dumb use of the money. If you want like it's nice, but it's not really required. They're okay with that. But now with all the austerity type of conversations, lots in the news about countries and provinces and cities in debt. So now the councilors are sharpening their pencils and seriously looking for ways to reduce the amount of money, particularly when we're looking at another tax rise pretty soon.
But how much does it cost to create concrete concrete ping pong tables? It's just a case of case the thing in and pour some concrete. No,
they're pretty costly if you look at the cost of the damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. But to my mind, it's just put the casements in place and then pour it in.
Well, are you a concrete guy?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So, so these things are very costly.
Oh, I know. And I'm saying that rather tongue in cheek, knowing that I'm not a concrete guy.
Yeah. So do we really need it? How many people are going to really use it? Why did we say, okay, that's a good one?
Yeah.
When and that was then. Now they're sharpening their pencils and looking at all kinds of things. What do we need compared to what do we want?
And so
we did, what the council did before, somebody wanted a concrete ping pong table, so they gave them a concrete ping pong table instead of saying, no, not this one.
Yeah. And it's like what you've got is a checklist. You go through them, you go, yep, I like that. Yep, I like that. Concrete ping pong tables. No, get my red pen out with a big X on it against it, right?
But in any case, the council meeting was we reviewed it with Paul on Monday and saw part of it last night. So that was an interesting part of it. The council meeting. We could report a little bit more on it tomorrow and prepare something. But I'd just like to say if we get back to the world news, like something we've been following, everybody's been following, is France. We reported not too long ago that France is going to recognize the Palestinian state, and it looks like the UK is threatening to do the same thing.
Yeah,
it's putting a lot of heat on Gaza. They're still in denial, though. The ambassadors and they don't have any answers, though. You say, look, this is what the UN is saying. This is what Doctors Without Borders are saying. These are what all these other NGOs are saying. There's starvation and everything. And they say, no, there's no denial. There is no starvation. That kind of thing. It was just too stupid. But the world has finally found a spine, finally putting the heat on Israel to stop that outrage that's going on. 60,000 lives now killed, 50 lives for every life lost in the October 7th outrage, and 104, I think it's 140,000 children have been wounded, and being hungry. So the UK is coming down hard. Trump himself has disagreed, has gone against Netanyahu's narrative. Joe Rogan refuses to have Netanyahu on his show. The Israelis, or the Israeli lobby, was pushing to have Netanyahu on Joe Rogan's show to spread his sort of propaganda. To Joe Rogan's credit, he will not put him in there. And Netanyahu's son, I guess, is called Joe Rogan a communist or some damn thing. I don't know what it is, but the it's beginning to work. It is a very slow, hard climb. The Netherlands have taken actions as well.
It was only a small article. There was no details in this article about the British plan to recognize a Palestinian state, because that's a major change for Britain, because Britain has long opposed the idea of twin states in that land.
No, they did not oppose them. Everybody in the world said that there should be a Palestinian state, and that was right from the creation of Israel in 1948. The other, it's supposed to be half and half. Half the area was supposed to go to Palestinians, half to Jews to create a state, which they did. But the promise to the Palestinians never really happened. There was war, conflict. Palestinians felt betrayed, because they backed up the British, a la Lawrence of Arabia, when their fight against in the First World War, and they were supposed to have a state. Instead, what the French and the British did was cut the area up into colonized and controlled regions. French getting Lebanon and Syria, the British getting Egypt and Israel, or what is now Israel, which was then Palestine.
Yeah.
So, and Starmer, the British PM, when he announced this, he said that we have obligations, because it was the Balfour Declaration that started the Israeli state. He made it possible for the Israeli state to begin in 1917. And it was never intended from the very beginning to be an independent state that excluded the Arabs of the area. It was supposed to be an autonomous area for Jews to feel safe, but it was not supposed to be an independent state, according to him. And if you look at the Balfour Declaration, it was unwise right from the very beginning, particularly when the promises given to the Arabs at the time for their help in the First World War were never given. The promises were made, but never done. But in any case, that's a long story. But the pressure on Israel is intense right now. They have to. Even Trump has gone against Netanyahu's narrative here, and they want these people to be fed, obviously. And I don't know. It's even CNN is, and you got to know when one of the main networks in the United States, the legacy media, you'll never get Fox to cooperate on this, but when you get CNN and they're actually telling the truth of what's going on in Gaza, or at least something like it, and it's not heavily weighted on the Israeli side, then you know that the progress is being made, because they are pretty much just carry the water for the Israeli narrative. And the United States has. You won't even hear a whole lot about AIPAC or the Israeli lobby on any of the news stations, because they they get a backlash right away. So anyway, progress is being made. The faster this ends, the faster that the children can be children again. Will be a great relief to my conscience, because I think about it every day, and it's making me weary that this is never going to end, kind of thing. And what?
Well, I was going to say, of course, one of the things about the Balfour Declaration is that it's seen by many as kind of the cornerstone to Zionist aspirations in the area.
Yes, but Zionism began about 20 years before that. It actually started in 1897.
But it was another
Zionism was well underway.
It was another brick in establishing that as an Israel, in establishing the state of Israel.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of speculation that the Balfour Declaration was to entice Jewish money or Jewish support for the war, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know if that really did happen.
This was at the tail end of the First World War during November 2nd, 1917. So there was still another bloody year of that war going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And finances was a big thing for the Brits at the time. They needed money. So this may have been sort of a carrot to, I don't know, possible Jewish money, I guess, to help to follow, or at least Jewish support. But I think every country was supporting their side anyway. Jews of England were supporting Britain. Jews of Germany were in the German army during the First World War.
Yeah.
So I think so I don't think that really follows too well. But anyway, whatever it is, we are making headway little by little, and I hope it ends very soon. But I think it's way too late. It's over a year too late. A year ago would have been too late, but at least it's happening. What else we got on the list there?
The next one we got is Premier Ford wants to walk back the pledge to issue permits to asylum, work permits to asylum seekers. This was something that basically Premier Ford walked back. He made a pledge a couple of weeks back about taking some control away from the federal government to issue work permits to asylum seekers. And now he's basically saying, I don't want to take the responsibility off the federal government. But in saying that, if you have a pulse and you're healthy, you need to be working. That's what Ford said.
Yes. What also he says is that the asylum program that the federal government set up is costing us a bloody fortune.
Yes, of course.
That's what he says. He wants to get the asylum seekers working so that they can sort of contribute to their own, obviously you want to get into the Canadian, if your asylum papers are accepted, then even before that, you should get out there and start working, because it's costing us a fortune to keep the asylum seekers.
Yeah.
Look what's happening in our town here.
And he's not wrong with that, because what he's basically saying is, hey, you make your contribution. We accept that in any community that there are sick and infirmed people who can't make a contribution, but where they are healthy people, they should be making that contribution. Yeah,
he said he was going to take it over. And he says, but the Premier repeated his call for federal government to speed up processing and urged a continuation of funding to support the cost of putting up asylum seekers in hotels and other accommodations, as well as providing them with healthcare and education. Well, geez, hotels are extremely expensive.
Yeah.
You and I could only go for a hotel for a brief vacation. These people are staying in them.
Yeah.
And the hoteliers are charging for that.
Yeah.
And he says they're really, really frustrated. It's not just him, but other premiers. And here it is. It says because the accommodations and other sports are, in quotes, costing our province an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
Now, this we can lay right back on Trudeau's feet. Now, there's another aspect of this that Quebec gets preferred treatment in this. They have more control over their asylum seekers, and the federal government, of course, the ones we have here all came from Quebec.
Yeah.
So the Quebec has a special status among all the other premiers. The premiers want that same status. They want to be able to say, have a bigger say in the whole thing. They want more money from the feds. It was their idea in the first place. It was a very bad idea from the very beginning by, I can understand the ideology behind it. Okay, let them all in, we'll take care of them and all that. But I'll tell you something. When I was in a hotel in Schmoen Parkway there, I think the Delta one in St. Catharines there, I can't remember what the hotel was there, but we had a Toastmasters had a convention there.
Yeah, it used to be the Four Seasons at Schmoen Parkway, but I could be right. But that's a long time ago. I don't remember what it's called now.
It could be it. Yeah. But the story I have to tell here is there was a young man there from someplace in Africa. And he's a very tall young man working very hard, and there was a luncheon there, and he was doing part of that and picking up after the luncheon and everything. So he's a legal immigrant into Canada, right? And he was the one. He told us that he had other jobs, and one of the other jobs was setting up and help serve the asylum seekers. He came into the country legally. He has to work one or two, like a couple different jobs to keep things going. And he is really ticked off at these asylum seekers who live in these hotels and get all this food. And he's one of the guys that's serving them. And of course, what he was saying is, if I came in illegally, the asylum seekers, I'd be there not serving these people, but actually being served.
Yeah.
So there you have it, where somebody came into the country illegally, trying to make their way, and if they had come in illegally, they would have been treated much better.
Yeah. But Alberta's Danielle Smith is citing Section 95 of the Constitution, saying she believes it gives provinces more power to make decisions on immigration.
Yes, well, like I say, Quebec already has that. As a matter of fact, Trudeau himself announced that there's going to be a 20% drop in immigration going to Quebec because Quebec wanted that control, but he would not give it to the other provinces.
And the irony here is that if you migrated to Quebec, the rule when I came to Canada, the rule was you couldn't migrate to Quebec unless you spoke natively a language other than English.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they wanted you to learn French because you can get along quite easily with English.
No, it wasn't that. It was that if I was, let's say, a native Arabic speaker, Quebec would be open to me.
Yes, because the next language you would learn would be French.
Exactly.
But if you came there with Arabic and English, they would say, okay, no, you're going to maintain yourself with the English language in Quebec, and that's what they don't want. English is spreading in Quebec, and they're trying to put a damper on that. They're trying to force people to speak in French. As a matter of fact, here when you get your documents in Ontario, they'll be both in French and English.
Yeah.
Not in Quebec. They're only
Yeah.
in French.
Yeah.
If you phone them for information, it's only in French that you
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
So they're trying to push people into using French only.
Well, the
That
irony
worked
of,
for a while.
the irony, of course, is that whilst they make those public statements when it comes to you coming into the country, there was nothing stopping me getting on the very next plane to Montreal and going and setting up home in Montreal.
For what?
As a new immigrant.
But you spoke English, so how is it you're allowed into Montreal but not into into Quebec?
No, I'm just saying there is nothing stopping me from turning around, having now got my citizenship, now got my immigration status, and just gone straight to Quebec.
Sure, yeah. You could have. Sure.
I could have just taken the airport car and gone up the 401 and headed to Quebec.
Yeah. Now I don't know what Quebec rules are, but they do have more controls over their immigrants. So but anyway, the asylum thing has been a complete disaster because it's cost incredible amounts of money.
Yeah.
The government was never set up to do anything to process them, and that's the real problem. They are processing them at a snail's pace because, of course, a lot of the asylum seekers aren't real. They're only finding an easy way into the country.
Yeah.
We spoke of. I was told of. I think somebody that was working for one of the charity groups that a guy from, I think it was Syria, but he was quite open about it. I'm not even sure it was Syria, somewhere in the Middle East anyway, Pakistan maybe even. But they came into the country. They have money, they have wherewithal. So they get into a place like Mexico, and then they have money to pay a people smuggler to get into the United States. And then from there, it's just a walk up to the Canadian border. So they just get up to the Canadian border. So these people who have made it here are people with wherewithal. They have money. The poor saps that are trying to get here, otherwise, the Haitians and other stuff like that are lined up on the border trying to sneak in and trying to get in that way or some other way. But it's the ones with money. The asylum seekers that we have here are people that have started out with money and then just took a chance at skipping the line of real immigration. Yeah. They could have applied for immigration, but they've got enough money that they went the other route because they can get in quick, and that's it. They can be asylum, and so there's something really wrong with that. When you have a legal immigrant, someone who is legal, that's in there serving the food to illegals or asylum seekers, and he has to struggle and work a couple of jobs just to put a roof over his head and all that, and asylum seekers are getting a free roof and free food and lots of help.
Well, and I understand where Ford is coming from, because he's saying we need additional workers on the workforce. Despite despite NDP leader Marit Stiles saying that he needs to focus on the problems he can control, I think he's looking at this about potential.
Yes, if they can get them out there and get them to work and contribute and help with the cost, that would be a big thing. But the problem is really the federal government, because of their ponderously slow processing abilities. They when they let asylum seekers in or others, and we know that the previous federal government really botched up the immigration thing totally bad. We found that they brought in way more people than the country could handle, and yet it was maintaining itself very well up until that point. But the idealism of Trudeau and his group was to make Canada 30% foreign born by 2035 or something like that, without assuring there's enough healthcare, without assuring there's enough housing, without assuring there's enough opportunity. And then, of course, a big problem was the students coming in a big waves of students. If you got your kindergarten degree, somebody will just kind of say, okay, that's good enough. Come into Canada, you're a student now. And we find that massive amounts of students never even went to school. They just got here. So it's really down to the Fed and their disastrous immigration policies.
Yeah.
If they tighten those up.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's been the problem here. The federal immigration policy under the Liberal government has been, I'm not saying a disaster, but has been heading in the wrong direction.
Yes, it's. I'm very glad that Trudeau is out, because I don't think he had a realistic approach to anything. He was all driven by idealism.
Yeah,
and really, when the push came to the shove,
idealism has a place, but but at some point you have to temper it with reality, don't you?
Yeah. So I don't know. It was, I don't know. The farther away he is from politics, the better for us. We do now have a practical man in the top job, but unfortunately, he's working with the same stooges that Trudeau was working for. So I hope that doesn't encumber him.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I can understand why Doug Ford is saying that. He's bringing it to the fore. He's not being called a racist. How about that? If he had come up with this 3 or 4 years ago, somebody would have called him a racist.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's true. Actually, almost any time when you kind of say to people, "Hey, we should be tempering or holding back immigration," that is often the case that was put forward. And like, for example, it was said with Maxime Bernier, when Bernier's view was that, I think he used the wrong language, but again, Bernier's view was that we needed to curb mass immigration, but he never explained what that meant.
Well, unfortunately, that is a term that is used by far-right groups all over the place, mass immigration.
Yeah.
He could have said excessive migration or unsustainable migration, anything.
Yeah. Exactly.
But unfortunately, they used mass migration, and I'm not so sure they did it by accident. I think they used it to entice the far right, who are basically racist. So a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to be said on that subject?
No, but I hope that the asylum seekers get off of us. They're a monkey on our backs, basically, and it's not their fault. But let's get them out there and working.
Yeah. Okay. Not sure really where to go now, because we're kind of at the hour.
Yeah, it's well, I could talk about.
And we got a couple of other stories, but I don't really want to go into either of them because they will take time, both of them.
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know.
Well, we got a few comments.
I watched the council meeting, and of course, I reviewed it the day before the council meeting. There's some pretty interesting stuff there. There's an outfit called CATE, and it's called the Canadian Association of Tourist Employees. They made a presentation to the city last night. I really can't understand what they're all about. Like, at first I thought they were ostensibly about improving tourism around the world, so that tourist employees have more opportunities and stuff like that. But when the guy spoke last night, and when I read their webpage stuff, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It really doesn't say much at all. I think Paul K. Lemire was right when he says they're just an outfit looking for money. So if anyone else has any insights on CATE, to me it sounds like it's it could be just a scamorama. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Okay. So, and I've been putting up a few of the views that were put up by loyal listeners like Mike and Betty.
Betty says, and the prices on goodness go out, have a burger and fries. Yeah. So that's another issue that was brought up among my family. Family on Sunday it's killer just to go out for a burger these days.
Yeah, and actually, the interesting thing is that the price that Betty's putting out here, I made the mistake of going to McDonald's the other day. That cost more than $30. Yeah,
there you go. The fast food is not cheap anymore.
Yeah,
but the problem here is that I watched an interview with an American farmer the other day, and he was talking about the cost increases. And his warnings were, good food is going to be the food of the rich. So if you want good, nutritious food, it's going to be the food of the rich. When we talk about vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and things like that,
and here, a comment back to our last article from Mike.
Yeah. Oh my God, England's anti-Semitic. Yeah. Well, France is too. Well, France beat them to the punch, and they're anti-Semitic before we are. We better get in on it.
And the interesting thing is, there's something like about 70 other nations that are making this declaration as well. I think it may even be higher.
And a lot of nations have already recognized Palestine, but it's the big ones that count.
Yeah,
it's the ones that have weight.
Well, and the other thing, of course, is that let's not forget, in the Security Council, Britain and France have a veto.
Yes, they do. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. The big countries are the important ones.
Yeah.
United States, Britain, France, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to tie it up, and I will. I'll bring focus back on Gaza because we're kind of sitting on that right now. And as we know, France and the UK are now officially anti-Semitic nations because they're going to recognize Palestine. Joking aside, though, we should keep this in mind. We look like we might have progress here. We know the power of the Israeli lobby in the United States. Nearly 100% of Republicans and 75% of Democrats take a big deal, a huge amount of money for their political campaigns. And we saw the hypocrisy of AOC compared to the moral judgment of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I never thought I would ever say that, but that was the case. In any case, just keep Gaza in mind. And without further ado, I bid you adieu.